So the okay.
Hey y'all, my name's Anna Lee and this is Coy, and today we're going to be talking to you about hiking Mount Elbert, what you need to do to prepare, what you need to pack, and what to expect, as well as our experience. So let's go. First things first, let's talk a little bit about Mount Elbert, where it's located, how tall it is, all the fun things. First thing is that it is the tallest mountain in the Rocky Mountains. It's sitting at 14,439 feet with about a 5,000 foot elevation gain. And it's the second tallest mountain in the lower contiguous 48 states.
Mount Elbert is located in Twin Lakes, Colorado. Are you? This is what it's like. This is my life. Okay. Stop. Okay. Mount Elbert. I'm going to ignore her. Mount Elbert is located in Twin Lakes, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from Denver. So you fly into Denver, get your rental car, do whatever you got to do, drive to Twin Lakes. That's where it's located. The hike itself is around 4.6 miles to the summit, and it's around 9 miles round trip.
Yeah, I think it took us like 9.3 once we got back to the base camp. Now let's take a little time and talk about how you actually prep for Mount Elbert, if you need to prep physically, what that looks like. So I'll let him start.
So I would say that Anna Lee was more prepared physically for Mount Elbert than I was. I do work out every day, both of us do. The training is different. I work out with weights. I do a lot of CrossFit style stuff and some bodybuilding stuff thrown in there, but I don't do a ton of cardio. Anna Lee, she works out every day and she does cardio pretty much every single day.
I think that really helped because the altitude's no joke. I don't think took that very seriously, and I think he actually got a little altitude sickness when we were hiking because of that. Yeah,
and we'll talk about that when we get to our experience on the hike, but I definitely did feel the elevation. It is something you need to prepare for, whether you go by altitude mask. I didn't try those, so I don't really have much experience from it, but getting on a stair stepper, on a treadmill, or just running, doing some type of
Tabata style or like HIIT cardio, I think that helps.
Yeah, Tabata or HIIT, or even some type of long distance like running, maybe 5 miles at a time, that would probably help. Or just getting out and rucking if you live in an area where you have mountains that are available to you. We're in Texas.
Yeah.
So we have flat, unless you go to West Texas, but we ain't doing that. So we had to kind of work with what we had.
Yeah. So to Colorado we went.
Yeah.
Now let's jump into what to pack on the mountain and what to pack at your campsite to make sure you're prepared for your hike.
So I think for the campsite, it's basic stuff. You need your tent, you need your sleeping bag, you need a pad. I would definitely recommend that because ground's not really like amazing. So
yeah, you can get a $30 pad from REI. It was so comfortable. It was like I was sleeping at home in my bed. I also got a little pillow that you can just blow up yourself, and that's really necessary, I think, to have a good night's sleep.
REI is a great store. We're going to mention that several times. It's a great store to get all your stuff from. Not necessarily like cost efficient, but it still does the job, and you need the stuff to be comfortable for your hike.
Right. So anything that we mention here in this video, I want to note that it's going to be down in the description, so you can find any of the links there, and it'll all be in one perfect little area for you.
So we already said tent, sleep bag, pad. Another really important thing is a jet boil. The jet boil is something you can take with you to the airport. You can pack it in your bag. It's compliant with TSA as long as you don't take the fuel with you. Yeah. So when I went, I took the fuel with me and pulled me aside, got my driver's license.
Went to jail, no big deal.
I'm a police officer, so I was like, oh my gosh, like what is going to happen?
I said I was going to leave him.
So I'm upset, embarrassed, and I'm like, okay, y'all do whatever. They'll take it away from you, so just make sure you don't have your fuel with you. It is not TSA compliant, and they will write you up.
Yeah, and a lot of things too. I feel like we thought we had to get everything while we were in Texas, but it's Colorado. A lot of places, especially in the 21st century, like there's grocery stores. You can pick it up once you get there. So along the same lines of the jet boil, you can buy these little pre-made meals at the REI store. So once you get there, you can get your pocket shower, which we recommend. You can just shower after your hike in your campground. You can get your fuel for your jet boil. You can get all the meals that you need for the jet boil. You can get your oxygen. You can get everything that you need at that store. So try to save some space during your travels and save all of that for once you get there.
Yeah, so for your campsite, in addition to all that, you want some type of lighting, whether it's a big lantern or something. You're going to want that because if you start in the morning, which we'll touch on why you should, you're going to want some type of light in your campsite, in your tent. Another thing you're going to want, headlamps for sure. Hiking on the trail, it's also for dangerous circumstances where you get lost and you need a headlamp. Like, you do not want to be stuck out in the dark.
And I recommend whoever's there, like each individual person should have a headlamp. Yeah. We only had one, and it kind of made it hard when he was hiking behind me because he couldn't see. So definitely have headlamps for everybody.
Yeah, have headlamps.
Thing too, I would say, is to make sure that you have a lighter. We thought that we could rely on the flint flicker, but if you're going into an environment that's wet, you're not going to have dry twigs and stuff. So make sure you have a lighter. You can start a warm fire for when your hike is over.
Yeah, I'm not a seer specialist, so definitely have a lighter with you. A good old big lighter always does the trick. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about hiking gear. So when you're going up the mountain, you do not want to be heavy. Like I said, it's a 9-mile round trip. And you're going at 5,000 elevation and it's straight up. So you want to pack light, pack only the necessities. You want to have snacks, of course. You want to have Uncrustables. That's a good one to have. It's high on carbs, high on sugar. That's what you're going to need. What is it? The Cliff Blocks of energy. Mm-hmm. They're chewy.
It's like caffeine in them too.
Sugar. Yeah, sugar, caffeine, carbs. That's what you need.
Yeah, I also love the little tuna packs that have the crackers. And you can just make your tuna as you go, put the trash in your bag and go. Along the same lines of gear, we personally both had big camping backpacks for through trail hiking. But we also both had small day packs, which were the Osprey style packs. Yeah. We'll link them below here. But those were perfect because you could put your bladder in there, which was our Camelback bladder. A bladder is the water that can sit in the little bag. And then we also had waters on the side. So tons of room. We had enough room for our snacks, an extra survivor blanket in case something were to happen, and just allows you to be able to hike and not have all that dead heavy weight.
So since we're touching on water is a huge thing. So when we were getting all our supplies, we were asking people, hey, do we need this? Do we need that? Because these people live in Colorado. They do this all the time. They understand the elevation. They understand how to combat it. They really didn't recommend that we buy oxygen, which you can get into little canisters and you can breathe it. I think that's for dangerous circumstances where somebody passed out, they need oxygen then and there.
And we did buy oxygen, but I will say that we took it back because it wasn't necessary.
So water is huge. Water is the number one thing that they recommended to us. They're like, drink as much water as you can before the hike, during the hike, and after the hike, because the altitude will get to you.
Yeah, and that's really the only way that you can combat it. I mean, I feel like you can be physically fit. We are both very fit. We work out every single day, we mentioned before, but I think he's still got a little altitude sickness.
Yeah, for sure.
The only way you can fix that is by chugging water. So the night before, I remember I had to pee 5 times, and he kept saying, why are you drinking so much water? And I said, trust me, I know it's the only way to kind of adjust to that altitude.
Yeah, so drink water, bring plenty of water with you. Our Camelbacks probably carried 3 liters of water, and we ended up having a little extra, but we still used a lot of that water because we needed it. Yep. So
now I think it's important we take a little time and talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Because we saw that the best time to go was between June and early September. Yeah. But there's also rainy season, so it should be and was expected that there are thunderstorms every afternoon, no matter what. That's why if you read online, they say start your hike early, not necessarily because of the distance or the time, but because of the time of day. You want to avoid and be off that mountain by the time lightning strikes.
Yeah.
This is not a mountain to mess with. It's very tall. It's the tallest one in Colorado, so you have to take it seriously. That being said, there have been deaths on Mount Elbert, mostly because of the altitude, hypothermia, or lightning. So we were pretty nervous.
Yeah, we were pretty nervous going up there, and we'll get into the experience later, but in addition to the weather, there were guys on the mountain when it started raining and when it started hailing, and they got out into the open. They were like, hey, we're turning back.
Yeah, they ended up turning back because of the weather.
And these dudes were it was funny, they were actually from Austria, and they were like, hey, we do this all the time. They do like long distance, long distance like trekking, and they passed us. Like they were fast, and we're like, well, we'll just let those guys go, and we'll catch up on them later. They ended up coming back, and they're like, yeah, we're not risking it, we're not doing it, and then we kind of.
It was because of the lightning, so that's where it's just really important to pay attention. Look at the weather before, pick the clearest day to go. Granted, it's probably going to rain every day, but if you go early enough, they say start about 3-4 in the morning for this hike, and you'll be hiking in the dark, so that's where those headlamps come into play. Sure. And you'll be off the mountain by the time the thunderstorms start, and you won't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah. So let's go into the experience of Mount Elbert. So we got started around 11 a.m.
Well, let's go back and actually talk about why we're even hiking Mount Elbert. The reason we're doing it is because we watched 14 Peaks on Netflix, and I was immediately inspired, and I went on my computer and bought a ticket to Africa because I said I'm hiking Mount Kilimanjaro. And so this one decided to tag along, and we will be hiking Mount Kilimanjaro in September. So that being said, we knew that training here in Texas, it was not enough. We needed to actually train our bodies for the altitude, which is why we went to Colorado and hiked Mount Elbert. We were going to hike Mount Massive, but we ended up doing Long's Peak, which we'll share about in a later video, our wild ride with that mountain. But that's why we even decided to do Mount Elbert in the first place.
So let's get started with the hike. So we started around 11 a.m.
Because of the weather.
Yeah.
We had a crazy night before. Our tent started leaking. We ended up getting maybe 2 hours of sleep. Not very much sleep at all.
If we got that much sleep. So we get up and we're like, all right, let's go do this. It's already 11. We're like,
which was way too late.
We're like, screw it. Like, we're just gonna go. I wanted to wait just because of the weather. She's like, nope, we're doing it. And if anybody knows her, it's headstrong always. We're doing what she wants to do. So
not what I want to do, what we said we were going to do.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree here. So we go and we start hiking around 11. The hike's going pretty well. The first couple hours on the
I was hot. I wore a tank top.
Yeah, it was hot. We were used to it, and then you start getting to 13,000 feet, and it's like the elevation starts kicking in.
Mm-hmm. And well, there's a tree line I think you need to know about.
Yeah, when you get into the tree line, that's really when elevation, in my mind, that's when I started feeling it. Started getting headaches. Now,
that's also when the hail started, and the weather and the thunderstorms came through. We were catching the very beginning of it.
Yeah, so it kicked down to 50 degrees, really, really cold up there compared to what we were used to. It's the middle of summer in Texas. It's 100 and 5 degrees.
I did not expect that.
So we didn't expect that. Didn't plan for that. Didn't prep for that. So it was kind of like a compounding effect. And then I didn't have anything on my head, so my head was wet. My hair was all jacked up. It was awful. So I'm cold. I got headaches, and that's when I really started to feel the altitude. I think I got a little bit of altitude sickness. Annalie was fine. She was trucking along, and I was like, oh my God, didn't feel like a man at all, but Annalie, she works her butt off at home, so I didn't feel too bad. So we start hiking up, and then we get out of the tree line. Yeah,
and I will say that once you get past the tree line, it's pretty open, and you should, if you're up early enough, you should be able to see pretty far and deep of how high you've actually come. But because we went when we did, you couldn't see 5 feet from you because of all the fog, and we were in the clouds. And we had a pretty scary moment when we got to the top. Looking back now, never leave your hiking buddy, and I learned my lesson the hard way. But we were hiking, and he was having trouble. I thought he was getting altitude sickness, and I was headstrong on summiting that mountain, and so I kind of just took off, and I let him stay back. I didn't think at that point, I thought he just wasn't going to summit. And so I just trucked it because I wanted to beat the storms as well. And when I got to the false summit, I turned around because there's 2 summits. I turned around and I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him. I couldn't see 5 feet from me, and I kind of started freaking out. That's why I ran up to the real summit and touched it and turned back around and immediately started calling him, screaming. Couldn't hear him. In my mind, I thought he might have passed out from the altitude or gotten hypothermia or something. It was a bad situation.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I didn't realize it because I was in pain. I'm cramping. Both my quads are cramping at this point. I'm pretty much fighting through the pain. And I see she's going ahead of me. I don't really hold it against her. Not really. It's just kind of a lesson that we learned. You know, you learn things every time you go on a trip. You learn something new. So it is what it is. She started going ahead of me, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to stop her. I'm not going to prevent her from getting up there. So she went, and I was like, I'll meet her at the top. It'll be fine. But like she said, the fog starts rolling in, and you can't see anything. You can't see anything, and then I didn't realize how like crazy the noise is up there, but you can't hear anything either.
Nothing.
It's so wide open and so like you're so high in elevation that you have to scream to be able to hear someone.
We couldn't.
Even if
Like,
they're
I was
100
screaming at
yards
the
from
top
you.
of my lungs. Like we
Yeah.
could not hear. Well, when I started like booking it down the mountain because I thought I was gonna find him passed out on the side of the mountain, I looked down at my phone and I realized that for the first time during the whole hike we had service. And so like a little light went off in my head and I just decided to pick up the phone and call him.
Luckily, I had my phone.
And that's how we actually reconnected. Was we just called and I realized that he had summited after me, a little different angle going up the mountain. I didn't really follow the trail. I just went straight up, and we reconnected and then booked it as fast as we could back down that mountain.
Yeah, reconnected with her. She was about, oh man, I don't know, what, 100 to 200 yards below me. So I was at the summit, and I was like, she called me, and I could not hear her, and I booked it. Like, I just started hauling down the mountain. Almost fell on my face a few times. Found her. She's crying. She's like, I don't know where you were. So we hugged, made up, whatever. Then we started getting down the mountain. And really, the rest of the way down the mountain, it's more of like a pain on your knees and your feet, really. Your feet.
Yeah, if you can, like on a treadmill, turn around and just go backwards so you can kind of train those little muscles in your knee, because that'll help a lot when you're going down.
Yeah, definitely expose yourself to extended walking and climbing. That's pretty important. All right.
Yeah.
So the rest of the hike wasn't that bad. It was just downhill, so everybody knows going downhill is way easier than uphill. At least in our experience, it is. Got back down, and it was just about time.
Which luckily I will say, staying wise, you can obviously stay at an Airbnb hotel, but I think it's the smartest thing that you can do is to stay at that campsite. It's called Elbert Creek Campground. It was maybe 100-yard walk to the trailhead, which is so nice, especially if you're starting out at 3-4 in the morning. It's nice to not have to worry about parking and leaving your stuff in your car.
It's a pain.
It's just all right there. You can prepare the night before. So I definitely recommend you staying at that campground. It's also first come, first serve. So if you go, set up, get everything ready the day before, then you should be good to go.
All right.
Yeah, well, hopefully this helps you prepare for your hike up Mount Elbert. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we will get back to you as soon as we can.
Thanks,
so,
guys.
yeah, happy hiking.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Sorry.